And that music means he's back in the room, lights, camera, action. Welcome back to talkSPORT and talkRADIO. And he joins us each and every Friday for his guide to the big Freeview films of the weekend. Our mate, here he is, Van Connor. Good morning, Van. That was a big build-up for you. Morning, Van.
Quite the build-up, Mr. Ross. Thank you.
And how's your week been? What you been up to? Watching loads of movies, no doubt.
Do you know what? I got to watch all the ones you were picking for today, so I'm very happy. And I got to watch some of my childhood favourites as well for the ones I was picking. So I've had a great week. I'm not going to lie.
Well, you're starting with an absolute belter. I was on talkRADIO earlier on with Christo Fufas, who does the 10 to 1 show, Monday to Friday, and I was telling him that the Rocky Horror Picture Show is back on Talking Pictures TV tonight at 10 o'clock. His tongue was hanging out in anticipation, and that's your first pick, isn't it, for us? The Rocky Horror Picture Show, a great from Tim Curry, an absolute legend in this.
Absolutely. I mean, talking about the Rocky, it seems so strange to have to talk about the Rocky Horror Picture Show because it's such a ubiquitous thing. It's such a fan favourite. It's not even a fan favourite. It's just such a beloved favourite. It's and yet hard to believe this thing was a bomb when it opened. It became a cult classic later, but the 1975 musical icon, really, isn't it?
Absolutely fantastic. Have you got a clip for us of the trailer?
So I've got a clip for you, and do you know what? You've already put your finger right on it. This is, of course, all about the anticipation.
For those who don't know, this is effectively a spoof, a musical spoof, but far more than that of those great 40s, mainly 50s sci-fi horror films. Tim Curry's in it as an alien who likes cross-dressing. He's created a man. An American couple turn up, Brad and Janet. They're not quite sure what's going on. Neither are we, but it's fantastic fun. It's 10 o'clock tonight, Talking Pictures TV, with songs like this. About chutzpah. That's a great performance. And then he ended up, of course, in Home Alone 2 as the hotel receptionist fella, didn't he? It's a great film.
Of course. Yeah.
So that's Talking Pictures TV tonight, Ted. Sorry, man, what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, yeah, Home Alone 2 as well, but of course this is like the original drag queen performance as far as like screen musicals seem to go, really.
Absolutely. Created, of course, by the fantastic Richard O'Brien, who later went on to host the original incarnation of the Crystal Maze. Well, I've got a sporting film for us tonight. It's BBC One. It's a brilliant watch. This is called Rush, directed by Ron Howard, who first leapt to fame as Richie Cunningham in Happy Days, of course. Great film director. It stars Daniel Bruhl, who I think is a brilliant actor, and Chris Hemsworth as James Hunt. It's Niki Lauda versus James Hunt, Hunt versus Lauda. It's from the year 2013, 10:45 tonight. It's an absolute belter, and you can also get, only Sainsbury's made available, because I'm a bit obsessed with this film, only Sainsbury's had a double DVD with a great making-of documentary on it, because some of the racing scenes in this are fantastic. Are you a fan of this film, Van?
I'm a huge fan. I remember I saw the press show for this with my friend Tony Earnshaw, who was obsessed with Richard Burton, and the big thing that annoyed him more than anything about it is they never got to film, apparently, there was a planned sequence involving Russell Crowe cameoing as Richard Burton. And he was going to show up and confront Chris Hemsworth about his affair with Olivia Wilde. Richard Burton is offhandedly mentioned in the finish. I think the film is fantastic, though.
Here we go. It's about that 1976 hugely important Formula One season. It's Rush, 10:45 tonight, BBC One.
The closer you are to death, the more alive you feel.
You're James, aren't you?
Yes. Who's that?
It's Niki Lauda. He's just been signed by Ferrari.
He's a nobody.
Look at the way he's driving, like an old man.
Right now, with zero incentive, why would I drive fast?
Because I'm asking you to.
An incredible battle between these two great drivers.
Next time I'll have you.
No chance. You're just the party guy. That's why everybody likes you.
Yes, I know, I'm terrible.
No, you're not terrible. You're just who you are at this point in your life.
To be a champion, it takes more than just being quick.
You have to really believe it.
I've been waiting for this my whole life.
And there's a great bit, which was true apparently, when after his dreadful accident, when he got horrifically burnt, somebody asked Nicky Lauda, what does your wife think about this? And she said, she said to me, you don't need a face to drive a Formula One car. I mean, it's an amazing testament to both men's kind of excellence, and also, you know, the ups and downs of James Hunt's life. And you've got another different nomination for tomorrow afternoon, a family-friendly ghost story tomorrow afternoon. I think it's ITV2, 4:35 p.m, and it's Casper the Friendly Ghost.
Yeah, I'm low-key obsessed with this movie. I have been since I was 12 years old. And this was, for one thing, this was the first movie to ever feature a completely CGI character as its lead. And also, as I've gotten older, I've become slightly more mystified by the fact this thing was rewritten by none other than J.J. Abrams as well. So Casper is based on the Harvey Comics character from the 50s. It's Casper the Friendly Ghost. He is, I forget, he has a surname. I think he's actually given a surname in the movie. In the movie, he's given a backstory as well in which he had died as a child.
Well, that's what's so odd about it. This is basically a story about a dead child, but it's for the whole family. It's just weird. Eric Idle's in it as well, isn't he, if memory serves?
There's an amazing roster of people who turn up in this film. You've got Kathy Moriarty, Christina Ricci, and Bill Pullman, noticeably not Paxton. I need to stop confusing those two. Very, very different actors in it. But you've also got a cameo roster that includes people like Clint Eastwood, Mel Gibson, Fred Rogers, a.k.a. Mr. Rogers, Rodney Dangerfield, and Dan Aykroyd as Ray Stantz from Ghostbusters, who actually turns up as his Ghostbusters character. And the concept you've got here is this is a sort of reinvention of Casper the Friendly Ghost as a sort of more dark and gritty yet still family friendly version. Basically a rich heiress wants to raid her deceased father's home to find his lost treasure. The house is haunted by Casper's three ghost uncles, Stretch, Fatso and Stinky, I think their names are. And in order to excise them, she calls in a paranormal expert played by Bill Pullman, a recently widowed expert who wants to utilize his investigations into the paranormal to contact his recently deceased wife, and his daughter befriends none other than Casper the Friendly Ghost. I've got a clip for you of what happens when they encounter Casper for the very first time.
Have a listen to this. What are you saying?
I saw a ghost, and it had a head, and it was round, and it was white and see-through, and...
Honey, no, maybe...
Dad, please, do not think I'm as crazy as I thought you were. I promise.
No, but remember, ghosts can't hurt you, okay? They're simply spirits with unfinished business, all right? Let's just see about this ghost, all right? Come here. Come on. Here, check here. Oh, see? No ghost there. Check over here. Oh. No, there's no ghost in there. We can even check over here. There. See?
Pleasure to meet you, sir.
You can pick up still, I think, in one of those pound stretcher shops, the 40s or early 50s animated series of Casper the Friendly Ghost, which is cute. But that is a cute film. So that's 4:35, ITV2 tomorrow afternoon. You may have recommended this one for us a few months back, and I make no apologies for mentioning it again. It's on tomorrow night. It's on, what channel is it? I can't remember now, but it's Commander.
Channel 4.
Channel 4, of course it is. I do apologise. 10 minutes to 11 tomorrow night. It's from 1985, directed by Mark Lester, not the lad who played Oliver in the film, of course. It cost only about $9 million. It made well over $60 million the first time around. It's, for me, the classic 80s Arnie action film. Arnold Schwarzenegger has great name, Colonel John Matrix. You got Vernon Wells in it. Also, a brilliant actor was Wes in Mad Max 2 a couple of weeks ago. He also turns up in Weird Science and Inner Space. And basically, it's your standard action plot. Some bad guys want revenge on Colonel John Matrix. They kidnap his daughter. Big mistake. Here's the trailer.
They hunted him down.
You know, Colonel, we went to a lot of trouble to find you.
They murdered his friends. And they took the only thing he would kill for.
If you want your kid back, then you gotta cooperate. Right?
Wrong.
Now, somewhere, somehow, someone's gonna pay.
And we know who it's going to be, and it's probably going to be the bad guys. And what's great about this film is I think it's got that kind of, it's got the Arnie gags, but it's also got such a high body count. I think I've said this before. I've watched it a few times and tried to keep count of the number of people that Arnie's character supposedly kills, and you lose it when he hits triple figures. It's an astonishing.
Well, because of the budget of it, I think he is responsible, for killing 81 people. At some point, some of the extras and stuntmen are killed 4 times over in some cases. That's actually a thing that's noted.
And there's a brilliant cultural reference in this to the mid-80s, because his daughter likes Boy George. Huh, you mean Girl George? That's the kind of 80s gag. That was his 80s gag there. So that's 10:50 tomorrow night, Channel 4, it's Commando. And let's move on now to my biggie for tomorrow afternoon. It's 3:45. It's BBC Two. It, for me, is one of the great films of the 1960s. Brilliant, brilliant film. It's Michael Caine, of course. It's a great film, this. It is the Ipcress File, based on the Len Dayton novel. Introduced us to Harry Palmer. There were 2 sequels in the 60s and 2 more recently, which aren't very good. But the Harry Palmer sequels, Funeral in Berlin and $1 Billion Brain, directed by Ken Russell, I absolutely love. But this one, directed by Sidney Furie, is fantastic. He's basically a kind of anti-James Bond in this, I think, Van, isn't he? And he's also somebody he's been up to something in the army, and he got caught for it, and in military intelligence decided he was obviously ferociously bright, as well as being tough as nails, so they get him out, but he's always kind of half blackmailed by his commanding officer, who is called, coincidentally, Colonel Ross in this. It's a great film. It's the Ipcress File. It's about double cross, quintessentially 1960s, and I think this was the first film in which Michael Caine wears his glasses and remains a star, isn't it? I think, because in Alfie and in Zulu, of course, no spectacles.
Well, no, I know that this is one of the many things being parodied in the Austin Powers franchise, and this is specifically where Austin Powers' glasses come from. I know that much.
And also, of course, Michael Caine turns up as Austin Powers' dad in Goldmember, I think it is. It's the Ipcress File from 1965. Do yourself a favour, folks, if you've not seen it for a while. Always reward you for rewatching this one. BBC Two, 3:45. Have a listen to the trailer.
You will forget all about the Ipcress File. You have forgotten your name.
In truth, his name is Michael Caine, and no one will forget his name. Michael Caine. He walks straight into sensational stardom in the Ipcress File, as he gets right under the skin of the brash, cocky, wry-humored Harry Palmer. The soldier seconded from the army for security duties, who's never far away from a girl, and always closer than close to trouble.
Now get this. I'm going to tell you until I know you're clean. And if you're not clean, I'm going to kill you.
Great film, that. It's got Gordon Jackson's in it as well, who was Hudson upstairs, downstairs, but then became the boss of CI Fire in The Professionals. And your last film is going to leave us with a huge laugh, isn't it, for Sunday? It's not just Hot Shots, it's the Hot Shots collection, and it's on Sony Movies, I think, starting Sunday afternoon, 3:20. Remind people what Hot Shots is like. It's like the ultimate Tom Cruise type spoof, isn't it, really?
Well, I mean, it positions itself, according to its own trailer, as the mother of all movies. So this was one of Airplane director Jim Abrams. It was part of that collective. They're called the Zaz movies, the Zucker, Abrahams and Zucker movies, as they were, that ended with exclamation marks in their titles. So you had Airplane, you had Top Secret, you had Naked Gun, and you had Mafia, and then the middle, sort of towards the end of this, you had Hot Shots and Hot Shots Part 2. The first one of which is a spoof of Top Gun, primarily, and the second of which is a spoof of Rambo 3, primarily. And they star Charlie Sheen. This was how Charlie Sheen discovered that he could do comedy, believe it or not, because he turned up in Ferris Bueller in a sort of cameo a few years earlier, but he'd never actually done an out-and-out comedy, and this was his first go-around. Obviously, nowadays, we primarily know Charlie Sheen for comedies, but back then he was a sort of hunky action thriller.
Well, he come from, like, Platoon and stuff, hadn't he? So he'd done some serious movies. And Wall Street.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, and in fact, the second one of these movies does actually get Martin Sheen back, so that the two Sheens can cross paths in the water and declare I loved you in Wall Street at one another. But like I said, the first one's Top Gun, the second one's Rambo 3. They are spoofs, sort of grand, broad, slapstick spoofs in the style of sort of Airplane, but the idea that so much of it is based on visual, physical gags. But of course, there's a lot to be enjoyed in the dialogue front as well, as you can probably hear very subtly in some of the dialogue, like this clip we have for you, which is kind of like the Rambo 3, he's living in a monastery kind of a setup.
So it's the Hot Shots collection, Hot Shots and Hot Shots Part 2. They all start, the kicks off 3:20 p.m. Here's a clip.
Albert, Colonel, good to see you again.
Yeah, you too.
You want to tell me about it?
Well, they let me live here. I help out fixing things. It's peaceful. Quiet. No one is allowed to talk.
And that dim sum fighting in the warehouse yesterday?
I just do that for the extra money and to satisfy my male cravings to kill and win. Colonel, who are they?
She's CIA. The other man's an extra.
I forgot that great game, because there are often jokes about filmmaking and stuff, aren't there, as there are in Top Secret and the others. Brilliant stuff. And Van, remind people how they can hear you and Rebecca Perfect, who's back with us on Monday with her entertainment and showbiz guide. And also you do 2-minute movies as well, don't you? Tell us about those as well.
So Bex and I can be heard later this morning from 6 a.m. in fact on podcast platforms on this week's edition of the Off-Screen Show, in which we give you your 7-day guide to everything movies. So some Freeview recommendations, some movies that are coming out on Blu-ray and DVD and on streaming, and of course to be watched for the very first time in the UK on digital as well. So this week, for instance, we're talking about Tom Hanks's Greyhound and The Way Back with Ben Affleck.
Let me ask you, have you seen The Old Guard yet, the Charlize Theron film on Netflix?
I am watching that later this morning, would you believe?
I'm going to be watching it later on today as well, so you guide us to that. And tell us about 2-minute movies.
Well, Greyhound will also feature amongst this week's 2-minute movies, in which I condense a full movie review into 120 seconds, complete with countdown timer. The idea being, in theory, that if you're stuck in the queue at the cinema and you can't decide what to watch, we can give you an answer in just under 2 minutes.
Great stuff. The mighty Van Connor there, and you can catch him with me next week on talkSPORT and talkRADIO. Coming up, a big look ahead.